You ever seen a man's soul leave his body and had to pretend it didn't happen? There's a sound that comes after the gunfire. It ain't silence. It's deeper than that. Like the air itself forgets how to move. Like time goes still. And the only thing that keeps breathing is the pain. Welcome to Injustice BROWEN. I'm Mark Joie. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment if this story touches something in you. Because some truths, they were never meant to stay buried. He was just a boy, 11 years old. Name was Henry. Didn't talk much. Didn't fight. Kept his head down like he was taught to. His mama called him her quiet storm. Said he had to. Many thoughts for a child. But in a place like Preston County, Georgia, in 1965, quiet was survival. His daddy, Raymond, was the kind of man you didn't look sideways at. Served the tours in Vietnam. Came back with a medal in a showbox and scars in his eyes. Worked at the feed store by day. Mopped floors at the high school by night. Never asked for a handout. Never raised his voice. Folks said he walked like he knew something everybody else didn't. And maybe he did. It happened on a Tuesday. Hot day. Sticky. Sun sat high like it was watching. Henry was sitting on the back porch, carving his name into a piece of wood with a nail. He heard the engine before he saw it, an old white Ford pulling up slow, kicking up dust that settled heavy in the air. Sheriff's deputies, 2 of them, tall, pale, and quiet, the kind of quiet that meant trouble. His mama froze in the doorway, her hands still wet from washing greens. She whispered, "Don't move. Don't speak. Don't blink." Henry didn't. He just watched. The men said there was a misunderstanding. Claimed Mr. Raymond had forgotten to pay for a wrench from the hardware store last week. A wrench? Nobody believed that. Raymond stepped out the house slow, calm, respectful, like a soldier. One of the deputies spit tobacco right near his feet, told him to walk on back with us. Just to talk. Toward the trees, toward the edge of the field. Raymond didn't argue. He nodded at his wife like it'd be all right. Henry slipped off the porch and crept behind the smokehouse, heart banging in his chest like a hammer. He followed at a distance, barefoot, careful. He hid behind a tree, no more than 20 yards away. Watched his father raise both hands, palms open. One of the deputies pulled something from his belt. The other had his hand on his holster. Henry didn't hear what was said next, just saw the gesture. His father pointing toward the house. A sudden shout, a shove, then the sound, a single shot, like the sky cracked in half. Henry's knees buckled, but he didn't fall. He didn't scream. He just stared. His father dropped to his knees first, then onto his side, blood soaking into the dirt. His body twitched once, then stilled. The deputies walked away like they just finished paperwork. No ambulance, no questions. Raymond's body stayed in that field for 6 hours. The sun moved across the sky, and not a soul from the black side of town dared to touch him. The law had a rule. Interfering with county business was a jailable offense. And in Preston County, that meant anything they said it meant. Henry sat on the floor that night, shaking. His mama didn't cry. Not then. Just sat next to him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders like she was trying to hold what little was left. Then she leaned down, real close, and whispered, "You didn't see nothing. Not now. Not ever. You hear me?" He nodded, once, and from that moment on, the boy who used to whisper to birds and talk to the wind went silent. Years would pass, seasons would change, but that field never left him. The smell of dirt, the heat of the sun, the way the grass bent beneath the dead man's weight it stayed, not in memory, in the body, in the breath. That day didn't just bury a father. It planted something inside Henry, and silence started to grow. By 33, Henry had mastered the art of being invisible. He moved through the world like smoke, silent, shapeless, impossible to grab hold of. Folks at Preston High called him Mr. Henry out of habit, not respect to them. He was just the janitor, the man with the mop, always early, never late, never talked. He'd been working there 8 years. Same halls, same wax floors, same blank stares from kids who thought they were the first to hate the world. And still, every morning, he polished the same brass door handles, like it mattered. The white principal, Mr. Danning, used to joke, "You clean too much, Henry, making the rest of us look bad." Then he'd laugh, that short, fake laugh people use when they know they're safe. Henry would nod, maybe smile, but never speak. He kept his head down like he learned. But lately, His body had other plans. The past had a way of clawing through the cracked images of that feel. The sun, the blood, his father's last breath. They came sharper now, loud, vivid, like somebody turned the volume up on memories he tried to bury under 20 years of silence. Sometimes he'd freeze with his hand on the mop handle, sweating, shaking, staring at nothing while the students walked past like he was a shadow on the wall. There was one boy who made him look twice, Corey, 15, maybe 16, always in trouble, always angry, didn't know how to stay still. That kind of fire didn't last long in a place like Bristol. Corey didn't walk down the halls, he stormed, talked back to teachers, cursed in class, wore his hair big in his pants low, and made eye contact like it was a weapon. Most folks called him a problem. But Henry saw something else. He saw a boy drawing pictures in his notebook, chains breaking, fists raised, flames swallowing buildings. Corey was loud in the way Henry had never been allowed to be, and that scared him. Scared him because he knew what Bristol did to boys like that. It happened on a Wednesday, late afternoon. Most of the school had emptied out. Henry was sweeping near the back stairwell when he heard grunts, boots on gravel, something being slammed against the wall. He followed the sound outside, toward the dumpsters behind the gym. There they were, two white deputies. One had Corey pinned to the brick wall by the neck. The other had his baton out. Corey wasn't even resisting. He couldn't breathe. Henry stopped. Heart pounding. He was 11 again. In the trees. Watching. But this time, his feet moved. Step by step, slow, shaking. He didn't even know he was yelling until he heard his own voice crack. That's enough. Everything froze. The deputies turned. Their eyes narrowed. One took a step forward, lips curling into something smug. This ain't your business, old man. Henry didn't move, didn't flinch. The silence stretched. Then they let Corey drop. Walked off like nothing happened. Henry helped the boy up. Careful, quiet. Corey looked him dead in the eye and said, "Why'd you help me?" Henry couldn't answer. Not then. That night. The phone rang just past midnight. A low voice. No name. "You keep your mouth shut, Henry. Last warning, or you won't wake up next time." The line went dead. Henry stood there, still holding the receiver. He walked into the bathroom, flicked on the light, looked in the mirror. The man staring back at him didn't look scared. He looked tired, like something inside had finally cracked open. He leaned in close and whispered, "Ain't quiet done nothing but kill me slow." And for the first time in years, he didn't look away. Corey had grown into the kind of man Henry once dreamed of becoming, unafraid, loud when it mattered. 21, broad-shouldered, voice deep and steady. The fire was still there, but now it had direction. He led meetings in church basements, held rallies on courthouse steps, talked about dignity, about justice, about power and numbers. He wore a shirt that said, "We don't whisper anymore." Henry came to one of his meetings once, sat in the back, said nothing, just watched. Watched a room full of black folks sit straight back while Corey spoke into a handheld mic that crackled with every word. Watched a younger version of himself push back against the same old lies in a new century. But Henry also saw the cops, parked across the street, not writing tickets, just watching. Same as always. And deep in Henry's gut, something twisted, because he knew what was coming, the day of the protest. Corey stood on the courthouse lawn with maybe 24 others, mostly young, mostly tired of being quiet. They held signs, chanted, sat down when the cops told them to move, didn't fight, didn't even shout. But the handcuffs came anyway. They arrested Corey first. No charge. No rights read. Just a knee in his back and a smirk from the officer in mirrored shades. Henry saw it on the news. Local station gave it 12 seconds. No names. No questions. Next morning, Henry walked into that police station. His hands were shaking, but he kept them by his sides. The white receptionist didn't even look up. "I'm here for Corey," he said, voice low but firm. She looked at him like he'd just barked, "Get lost, janitor." And that was the moment. That was the moment Henry knew silence had become his own kind of sin. He walked out of that building and didn't go home. He drove straight to a rundown print shop on Clay Street, the kind of place with dusty windows and crooked blinds. Inside was a man named Isaiah, freelance reporter, wrote for the only black newspaper in Bristol County. Henry sat across from him and told the truth, all of it. The day his father was murdered, the shot in the field, the silence after, the night He watched Corey get beat behind the school. The warning phone call, the fear that never left. Isaiah didn't blink, just scribbled, nodded, asked one question. You sure? Henry looked him in the eye. I've been sure for 26 years. The story ran that Sunday. Page 4. No photos, just Henry's words, laid bare. The town barely whispered about it. But the police, they heard it loud. That Tuesday night, Henry's house went up in flames. The neighbors said it started from the back, near the shed. No one saw who lit it, but everybody knew. Henry stood across the street, watching 30 years of life turn to ash, his fingers curled tight, nails digging into his palm. But he didn't cry, didn't yell, just watch it burn. Corey got out the next morning. No charges filed, no explanation, just a bruised shoulder and a deeper voice. He came straight to Henry's side. The two men didn't speak for a while, just sat on cinder blocks behind what was once a home. Then Corey looked over and said, Your silence was survival. He waited a second, let the words land. But your voice is a weapon. Henry moved into a rusted trailer on the edge of town. One window, leaky roof, quiet, and that's where he started writing. Not stories, records, dates, names, times, license plates, badge numbers. He wrote down the things that didn't make the news and the people who never got justice. He wrote like it was prayer. One night, Corey stopped by, unannounced. He picked up one of the papers from the table, saw a name, froze. This the same guy who, Henry nodded. Corey looked down at the pile. You're building something, he said. Henry didn't respond, just kept writing, because for the first time in his life, his silence was gone, and in its place was something louder, something heavier. Truth died by. The time Henry's lungs gave out, most of the world had already forgotten he was ever here. He died alone, in that trailer with the leaky roof and rusted gutters. No obituary, no church bells, just a nurse's note on a clipboard and a coroner who mispronounced his last name. They found his body slumped in a chair by the window, facing east, as if he wanted to see the sun one last time. The county buried him in a plain wooden box. No headstone, no service, just dirt and a whisper of the man he used to be. But Henry didn't leave empty. He left something behind. Her name was Ayanna, his sister's daughter, 26, law student in Atlanta, all fire and ambition, with a stubborn streak that ran bone deep. She'd only visited that trailer twice when Henry was alive. Said it smelled like old paper and stubborn dreams. But after he passed, she came to pack up what little he had. She wasn't expecting much. A few photos, a worn Bible, an old coat. Then her foot hit something hollow under the floorboard. She got on her knees, peeled back the loose plank, and found the box. It was heavy, metal, locked with nothing more than rust. Inside were letters, dozens of them. Some yellow with age, others fresh enough to bleed ink if you tilted them too far. Stacks tied with string, each one labeled by hand. Incidents, witnesses, reports, deaths. And tucked between them, one letter, folded different. Older paper, shaky, handwriting. She opened it slowly. It was dated 1965, the night Henry's father died. A full account, every detail. Where it happened, who was there, what was said, what was done. To white deputies, a false accusation, a shot in the field. The silence after. It read like a wound that never closed. Ayanna sat there for hours, reading in silence, her breath catching. On every page, the further she read, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't just history, this was evidence. She took the box straight to the Southern Civil Rights Legal Foundation, marched into their office with a voice that didn't shake, and dropped the letters on the table. The man in charge asked one question. You ready for what this might stir up? Ayanna didn't blink. Been ready since I was born. The investigation started quiet. Background checks, death certificates, old records pulled from county archives that hadn't been touched in decades. Most of the names in the letters were already gone, buried, retired, faded from memory. All but one. Samuel Harlow, former chief of police, 84, living in a gated neighborhood just outside of town, protected by money, name, and time. But the letters made it into the right hands, and then they made it to the community. One by one, people started talking. Whispers turned to questions. Questions turned to fury, and fury turned into something powerful. They held the memorial on a humid Saturday in August. Dozens gathered in that same field where Henry's father had died. No longer afraid, no longer silent, Ayanna stood at the front, holding the letter in both hands. She spoke without a microphone, just her voice. He wasn't weak, she said, steady and clear. She looked out at the faces of old, some young, some crying. He was waiting for the time to come when truth could be heard without being buried. The wind moved through the trees, and for the first time since 1965, the field felt like the weight had finally started to lift because Henry had told the truth. And Ayanna, she made sure the world listened. There's a kind of fire that doesn't burn things down. It builds, it rises in the chest like breath, like memory, like the voices of those who were silenced and buried before they could finish their sentence. Ayanna had learned how to carry that fire. She wasn't just a lawyer now. She ran a legal nonprofit with 7 staff, a small office, and a line out the door most mornings, black kids, mostly boys with ankle monitors and court dates, girls charged for fighting back. Every face reminded her of Henry and Corey and the quiet pain her people had carried for generations. One morning, a case came across her desk. 17-year-old boy, arrested at a peaceful protest, charged with resisting, obstruction, incitement. The usual stack they throw when they want to bury a kid in paperwork and fear. The boy's name was Marcus. He reminded her of Corey in the way he refused to bow his head. But what caught her eye wasn't the charge. It was the name of the prosecutor, Elliot Harlow, son of Samuel Harlow. The same Harlow from Henry's letters, the same man who'd sign off on the report. The night Henry's father was killed, some names don't fade, they just switch generations. The courtroom was quiet the day of the hearing. The kind of quiet that hums with tension, where every cough sounds like a scream and every movement is calculated. Elliot Harlow stood across from her, hair neat, suit sharp, mouth full of entitlement. He laid out his case with precision, like he was reciting from a script passed down through bloodlines. Ayanna let him finish. Then she rose. No theatrics, no pacing, just a folder in one hand and the fire in her chest. "Your Honor," she said, looking directly at the judge, a black woman with silver in her hair and weariness in her eyes. "Before I argue law, I'd like to read something into the record." She opened the folder, pulled out a letter. The courtroom didn't move. "This letter was written by my uncle, Henry Solomon, dated July 2nd, 1991. It describes the killing of his father, my grandfather, Raymond Solomon, shot in a field by 2 deputies. No trial, no justice, no press." She cleared her throat. He wrote, "I buried that moment inside me, and it grew like a sickness. But silence didn't protect me. It just kept the poison in. I watched them do it again to another boy, and that time I spoke, and they came for me too." She looked at Elliot. He shifted in his seat. She kept reading. "But if this letter survives me, if someone reads it, let them know we were never crazy, never weak, just waiting for someone who could say it louder than we could." She folded the letter. The judge didn't ask for anything more. She turned to Elliot. "Case dismissed." Ayanna walked out of that courtroom like her feet knew the ground had changed beneath them. Outside, the sun hit her face full. In her hand, folded between her fingers, was a photograph. A black and white shot of Henry as a boy, maybe 9 or 10, standing in front of the old house, shirt too big, eyes too old for his age. She held it up, let the light touch it. And whispered, "We said it," loud. The courthouse doors shut behind her. But something else had opened. In the weeks that followed, the story spread. More of Henry's letters were published. Ayanna started teaching a course at a nearby college called Documenting the Invisible. Corey showed up to one of her lectures, sat in the back, smiled the whole time. And the boy, Marcus, he came to intern at the nonprofit that summer, carried papers, asked too many questions, wore his rage like a badge. Ayanna gave him his own desk. That field where it all started, where Raymond had fallen and Henry had stayed silent, was now a memorial. Clean-cut grass, a plaque with names. People came there now to remember, to cry, to listen, and sometimes to speak, because silence had once buried a man. But truth brought him back, in voices, in justice, in fire that builds instead of burns. We carry the weight they left behind, but we don't carry it alone anymore.